We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
I was so careful to wear gloves. He didn't want to leave any fingerprints behind. What many perpetrators do not realize is they are leaving their fingerprints inside the glove.
There is blood on the porch, not inside the house. Not in the hallway. Not in the bedroom where an 84-year-old woman should have been sleeping. The blood is on the front porch, specifically at the threshold, straddling the line between inside and outside, as if something went wrong precisely at that moment of crossing. That blood is not random. That blood is a record. And when forensic analysts began reading it, droplet by droplet, pattern by pattern, what they found wasn't just evidence of a crime. What they found was evidence of a plan. A very specific, very deliberate, very professional plan that suddenly, violently, fell apart. This is the Nancy Guthrie case. And tonight, we're not just going to tell you what happened. We're going to show you, through forensic science and investigative logic, exactly where the plan broke and what that tells us about the people who took her. Stay with me. February 1st, Tucson, Arizona. Morning. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, a retired schoolteacher, a grandmother, is gone. No witnesses. No screaming reported by neighbors. Number 911 call from inside the house. Just silence, and then absence. When law enforcement entered the residence, the first thing investigators noted, and this is critical, was the condition of the interior. The house was immaculate. No overturned furniture. No broken glass. No signs of a struggle in the bedroom, the hallway, the kitchen. Investigators walked through every room looking for a forensic trail, the kind of physical story a struggle always tells, and they found nothing. The interior was clean. Now, to an untrained eye, that might seem like good news. No struggle means she went quietly, right? Maybe she knew them. Maybe there was no violence. But experienced investigators know something different. An immaculate interior, in the context of an abduction, doesn't mean nothing happened. It means someone made sure nothing would show. And that distinction, between nothing happened and someone made sure it wouldn't show, is the entire difference between a random crime and a planned one. So investigators moved outside. And that's when they found it. The blood on the porch. Forensic blood pattern analysis is one of the most precise tools in criminal investigation. Every drop of blood tells a story, about height, about movement, about the physical state of the person bleeding. And the drops found on Nancy Guthrie's front porch told a very specific story. The pattern consisted of what forensic expert Dr. Peter Valentine identified as skeletonized droplets. This is a precise term. A skeletonized droplet is one where the outer ring has dried and set, but the center remains hollow, almost like a donut pressed into the surface. This formation happens when a drop lands on a surface, spreads, and then the liquid center is disturbed or absorbed before the ring fully dries. It tells analysts two things: the drops fell from a meaningful height, and something disrupted them mid-process. Dr. Valentine's analysis placed the fall height at greater than 2 feet, consistent with a person being transported. Carried. Not walking under their own power. Now here's where it gets more precise. Former FBI analyst Maureen O'Connell, who reviewed the blood evidence, focused on something that might sound subtle but is forensically enormous: the absence of voids. A void in a blood pattern is a gap, an area where drops should be, but aren't, because something interrupted the fall. When a person walks and bleeds, their own legs create voids. Their stride pattern shows up as blank spaces between drops. It's one of the most reliable ways to determine if a bleeding individual was walking or being carried. O'Connell's conclusion, based on the uninterrupted pattern of drops found across the threshold, was unambiguous. There were no voids. The pattern was consistent with a two-person carry, one person at the shoulders, one at the legs, moving in a controlled, deliberate manner. Nancy Guthrie was not walking out of that door. She was being transported. And then there is the wound profile itself. Forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, along with analyst Amy Santoro, examined the morphology of the individual droplets, their shape, their size, their air content. The drops showed characteristics consistent with blood falling from a facial or upper body wound, specifically the nose or mouth. The droplets were mixed with air, producing the distinctive donut-shaped morphology. This is not the blood pattern of a gunshot wound, and not the pattern of a surface laceration on a limb. This is the pattern of an impact injury, a blow to the face, or a fall that struck the face or head. So let's reconstruct what the blood tells us. Nancy Guthrie was struck, or fell, sustaining a wound to the face or upper body. She was then lifted, carried by at least 2 people, and transported through the front door of her own home. She was bleeding actively during transport, at a height of over 2 feet, with no voids in the pattern. The drops are present on both sides of the threshold. She crossed that line unconscious, or incapacitated, in someone's arms. That is what the blood says. Here's where the story shifts. Because the front door was never supposed to be part of this at all. When FBI investigators began reconstructing the operational details of the abduction, they didn't find a rushed crime. They didn't find improvisation. What they found was meticulous, weeks-long preparation, the kind of groundwork that speaks to professional planning, not opportunistic violence. The cameras covering the property had been disabled. The exterior lights had been tampered with. And then there was the staging. 3 separate exit points at the rear of the property had been propped open. The kitchen door. The screen door. The back gate. Each one held in place using objects found around the property, Nancy Guthrie's own flower pots. Think about that for a moment. Someone had walked that property. Someone had assessed each exit point, determined the best route, and selected objects that were already there, unassuming, ordinary, belonging to the house, to hold those doors open. No tools brought in. No equipment left behind. Just quiet, careful preparation using what was already available. And the surveillance didn't begin the week before. The FBI specifically requested security footage from January 11th and January 24th, 3 weeks and 10 days before the February 1st abduction. Someone was watching this house for at minimum 3 weeks. Studying the patterns. Learning the schedule. Waiting for the right moment. This was Plan A. Come in through the back. Exit through the back. 3 prop doors, disabled cameras, a clear path out through the rear of the property with no exposure to the street, no sightlines from neighbors, no record. It was clean. It was professional. It was the kind of plan that, if executed correctly, leaves investigators with nothing. And then something went wrong. We don't know exactly what caused the deviation. What we know is the result. Nancy Guthrie did not exit through the back door. She exited through the front. And she was bleeding when she did. The blood on the porch is the physical record of that failure. It is the evidence that something in the interior of that house went differently than planned, an unexpected resistance, a fall, a moment of chaos that forced a change in route. The immaculate condition of the interior tells us that whatever happened was contained and brief. But the blood at the front threshold tells us it happened. And here is the forensic and logical conclusion that O'Connell, Baden, and Valentine's combined analysis points to: the transition from Plan A to Plan B was not calm. Nancy Guthrie sustained an injury, a facial or upper body impact, that rendered her incapacitated. She then had to be carried, by at least 2 people, to an exit that was never part of the original route. The front door was exposed. The front porch faced the street. The original plan specifically avoided this. And yet here they were, 2 people carrying an 84-year-old woman across a lit threshold, bleeding, at a time of night when any neighbor, any passing car, any random light could have ended everything. The professional plan had become a chaotic exit. The flower pots and disabled cameras were now irrelevant. They were out in the open, doing the one thing the plan was designed to prevent. That is the paradox at the heart of this case. Weeks of preparation. Deliberate, intelligent, careful operational planning. And then a single moment of failure that forced everything into the light. The blood on Nancy Guthrie's front porch is not just evidence. It is a timeline. It is a contradiction. It is the physical proof that whoever took this woman came prepared and left exposed. The skeletonized droplets confirmed she was carried. The absence of voids confirmed at least 2 perpetrators. The wound morphology confirmed an impact injury. And the back door staging confirmed this was never supposed to happen at the front at all. What does this tell us about the people responsible? It tells us they had resources, time, and knowledge of the property. It tells us they were organized enough to surveil a target for weeks, but human enough to have a plan fail in real time. It tells us that somewhere between the kitchen door and the front porch, something broke, and they had to improvise. And when people improvise, they leave evidence. Nancy Guthrie's case remains open. But the blood on that porch has already told us something that no perpetrator wanted us to know. The plan failed. And failure always leaves a trace. If you're following this case, subscribe. Because we are not done.